All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the League Express podcast. My name's Jake Kearnan, and joining me as always is the editor of League Express, Martyn Sadler. And Martyn, we've got another guest, a familiar face around the League Express office there in Brickhouse. But can you introduce our special guest for us, mate?
Yeah, it's my old friend and colleague, Tim Butcher, who we started League Express together back in 1990. Tim's been retired from this office now for quite a few years, but he still writes, along with Danny Spencer, the annual Rugby League Yearbook that we produce, and actually first started producing it in 1996. So I think this is probably, is it the 30th year, Tim, that the yearbook will come out, or is it the 29th? I'm not quite sure, but it's a hell of an achievement to produce a book that tells you everything you need to know about rugby league in the preceding year. So welcome on board. Great to see you back. You spent a while living in France. You're now back in England, I believe, and so welcome back. And I think we can look forward to a good conversation for the next hour or so.
Oh, thanks, Martyn. It's yes, we've been back since just before Christmas. We're living in the Colne Valley. Right up on the hills, so everybody else is having a heat wave, and we've got a bit of sunshine, but we won't have a heat wave up here, I don't think.
And nobody speaks French up there, presumably?
No, they don't. Well, that's good, because they all speak Yorkshire around here. At least I can understand what they're on about, which is,
Yeah. I was going to say, all that time living in France, did you learn how to speak French well?
I think my French got worse. Because I was pretty good when I got there. They don't actually speak French in the area where I live, which is the Gers, which is about an hour northwest of Toulouse. They speak Gascon.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, so it's like learning Parisian French, going down there. It's like somebody learning the Queen's English and coming to live in Wakefield or Huddersfield or Barnsley and trying to understand what trying to speak with people in Barnsley. No disrespect to Barnsley, of course, we love Barnsley. But yeah, it's so that's one of the benefits of being back. But we came back for family, really. That's why we came back. But the nearest rugby league team was Toulouse, which was, but it was still an hour and a half drive away. So
well, you did one or two reports in League Express for us from Toulouse, didn't you?
No, I mean it's great. The atmosphere at French rugby league is different from Wakefield, different from England, and certainly Wakefield. In that it's like a party, and in the middle of it, there's a game. The rugby league, and then they continue the party afterwards.
Isn't that the best way to live?
There's absolutely no doubt about it. I remember when they beat St Helens in the semi-finals of the Super League playoffs, which must have been 2 years ago, was it? When Sam Tompkins scored that great try at the end to finish the game, and the ground was full, and there were quite a lot of young people there. And I remember people coming out of the stand down the stairs. And they were dancing. Everybody was dancing because of that. So they'd seen such a good. It was a pretty tight game and a very defensive game, if you remember. But it was a fantastically exciting finish. Catalans got to the grand final for the first time, and everybody was dancing. I've not seen. I've been to Wakefield a few times this year, and it's a great ground. It's a great atmosphere. But I've not seen anybody dancing as they're coming out the stand yet. So.
Well, maybe if a few Wakefield fans are watching today, they can take the hint, mate.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's good
awesome.
to be back watching a bit of live rugby league. That's really the benefit.
Yeah.
But I find it a bit baffling now watching rugby league on TV and trying to record things and actually see games that you want to see. There's so much rugby league on TV in England, Jake, in Britain. It's very hard to keep up. But I like to watch the occasional game for the NRL too, So it's difficult. And a lot of the games are on a platform with Sky TV that you can only get on the red button, which I can't get because my Sky box is about 150 years old, and you can't see recordings. You have to You cannot actually see a replay of a game, which is really annoying. The only time I could see a replay of a game that's on this Sky platform was when I was at a wedding in Adelaide. That was on KO Sports. I don't know whether you subscribe to KO Sports.
No, I don't. No.
But, you can't in Britain. You can't in the mountains in Australia. I don't know. They keep it to themselves. You cannot see it. You can't get it online. So it's very frustrating, really. But Having said that, it's probably kept my marriage intact. I'm not watching rugby league.
I know how you feel about that.
Yeah. Well, that's it, Martin. Like every week, I'd come into the office to do the podcast with you, and I'd be like, "Did you get to watch all the action over the weekend, mate?" And it's just such a struggle, especially when you try to fit in a few NRL games as well. Yeah, I don't know how you keep up with it all.
Well, a few weeks ago, Dave Woods on Sky, one of the Sky commentaries, was saying this week we're going to have 17 live games in total on Sky, and I just thought, well, that is a bit too much, isn't it? You can't. If you were to watch every single game, you wouldn't ever do anything else.
That's right.
There comes a point where you're being overfed, really, and you've got to be a bit careful that you don't overdo it. To be honest, because there are other things in life.
It's impossible, which makes rugby league yearbook that I compile. I compile all the stuff on the season, on the Super League season, things like that. I rely very much on the reports in League Express. Without League Express, I don't think the yearbook could be possible. To be honest, so it's great having League Express. It's great having the Rugby League Yearbook. It's the 30th year, Martin. It's Super League 30 this year. And
30.
We had them the first season, didn't we, in '96? So it must be the 30th year. And this is Super League 30, is that right?
I think yes, it is. Yeah. It is Super League 30, isn't it? Yeah. Amazing, really, isn't it? It's just where's the time gone?
Well, in 1996, I think we decided to do the yearbook, and League Express was a bit of a different operation in its early days, because we'd learned to know how to do newspapers, but we were stuck in a little office in the Bradford Telegraph and Argus office in the middle of Bradford. I think I was the only full-time employee, and Spencer is my colleague and has been he's been co-editing the book for 30 years. He was actually he came to us on a YTS scheme, which was like a government scheme to get kids into work and give them some work experience. And he's been with us ever since. And we decided to do the yearbook. I think about a day after the end of the season or something stupid. It was a crazy thing to do, really, absolutely bad. So
absolutely.
And I was going on tour with Great Britain to cover the Great Britain tour of
the famous 1996 tour
in Fiji, and so we actually wrote the yearbook. We wrote the text in various hotel rooms in Sydney, Auckland, and Andy in Fiji. We actually wrote it there, but we didn't have any League Express with us. But our friend and colleague Malcolm Andrews, I don't know whether you remember Malcolm, used to be our Australian correspondent. He's funded down under his moniker. He had every back issue in his flat in Mullumaloo. Bound issues, so we were able to use that for reference and cobble together the yearbook. But I'm sure Danny won't mind me telling this story. But that first year in 1996, I was in New Zealand on the other side of the world. Danny was compiling the statistics in Bradford, and it was it was in 1996. So there were 2 years. It was a year where the champion was decided by the top of the table. There was no grand final.
No.
And when I think we had something like 6,000, 8,000 books printed that first year or something like that. And the title was decided on the Monday, which was a bank holiday. And St Helens won that game to win the title. I think they overtook Wigan. I'm not quite sure who it was. And when we printed the book, we got it back from the printers, opened it up, and the table had Wigan at the top.
Oh God!
Because the table was saying from the Sunday that edition of League Express, which didn't include the deciding game.
No.
Danny, his first that was a big job pointing the stats again. His really big job was we printed out 6,000 tables on the printer on adhesive paper, and Danny had to cut them out and stick the new table in the back of every book. So it was up to date. I think
I'd forgotten that.
I think that
I'm sure Danny hasn't.
I think about 300 or 400 copies actually got out into the shops with their own table in it. So if anybody's got one of those, they could probably make a fortune on it on eBay.
What a story.
And so every year now, Danny always rings you up and says, double check that table, double check that table.
That bank holiday must have thrown you out. But how did it all start for you two fellas? Tim, you were saying before we started recording that you actually used to live next to each other. Is that right?
That's right. And our first house when we got married was in just outside Wakefield, a place called Criggleston, in Station Cottages, which are 3 cottages which have been built for the rail workers at some Victorian days. And we moved in and we liked it there, and we settled down. And then I spoke to Martyn, I introduced myself and Tim Butcher.
And the key thing, Tim. There was a pub very nearby.
There was a pub very nearby, and I still miss that pub. But
the station.
Martyn had been chairman of the Student Rugby League, I believe, just after I played for England, Britain University against French a couple of times. And then
you played just too early for the first Student World Cup, Tim, didn't you?
Yeah, damn sure. But it was exciting enough going to France on an aeroplane twice to play rugby. But I introduced myself to Martyn, and Martyn said, "Are you Tim Butcher who played rugby league, Student Rugby League?" I said, "Well, yeah, I was. I don't know why I got in, and I don't know why I was infamous at that time, but and we got chatting about rugby league, and then we went for a few pints a few times across the road to the station pub, and it went from there really. So that would be 1987 when we moved in there. I think it was 1989 when we aimed to launch the newspaper. I'd no experience whatsoever in newspapers, but I was working as rugby league development officer in Sheffield. So I knew the game. I had contacts in the game. Martyn, I don't think you had any experience in publishing, did you, at that point?
No. I was a university lecturer at the time.
Right. But we got together, and we were frustrated really by the quality of rugby league reporting in general, and certainly match reports. You were very, very lucky if on a Monday morning you could read anything about your.
Tim, as I remember it, I think it was 1988 when we first started talking about it, because there was one famous victory that Wakefield had over Wigan in October 1988, when Wigan came to Wakefield, and nobody gave Wakefield a prayer because it was prime Wigan in those days, 1988, as I'm sure you remember. And Wakefield produced the shock victory of all shock victories. And I always remember in those days, when Wakefield had a great win, I used to go and try and buy every paper to read about it on a Monday morning. But on that particular Monday, there was no report on the game, because all the reporters were somewhat, most newspapers had one rugby league reporter in those days, and they'd all gone to other games, obviously thinking the Wakefield-Wigan game would be a one-sided contest. So I've got this vague memory of you and I sitting in the pub that night, lamenting the fact that Wakefield had this great win and we couldn't read about it. And I'm sure that's where you said, if I remember rightly, it's such a shame there isn't a specialist rugby league paper on a Monday. And that just sort of, from small acorns, big oak trees grow. I'm not sure whether I'd call us a big oak tree, but I'm sure that was the germination of the idea of League Express. If Wigan had won that game on that Sunday, we'd have probably never thought of it, mate.
Yeah, and the thing is, we were going to launch in 1989. For some reason, it was a bit too early. We'd absolutely no idea, what was really involved in. We had to research what was involved in producing a newspaper. It's not just about production; it's about getting it out into the shops and all the rest. It's quite a complicated business, getting it printed with no idea, with no inside experience of printing and the printing business. So we had to learn all that. And learn as we went along. But so in 1989, we didn't launch. We just didn't have all the information together and all the systems together. So we launched in 1990. I think September the
17th, I think, or September the 10th. No, September the 10th.
The 10th, yeah. Could have been.
I remember the first game we had on the front cover was Sheffield Eagles drew at Wigan. I seem to remember.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was the that was the game that we started with.
Yeah. We had the good fortune to we a couple of guys who owned Wakefield Trinity helped us out with a bit of money. We had the very good fortune of linking up with a guy called Tim Morse who lived in York, and he was an enthusiast about Apple Mac computers, and on-screen design of pages.
Yeah,
which was fairly new. It had been in with what was it called, Eddie Shah today. Don't know if you won't remember it, Jay, but it was daily newspaper produced by Eddie Shah, and I think they used full page makeup on the screen. On makeup.
They did. They were the first.
But
and then
the wet bus started. He certainly finished anyway, didn't it?
Yeah, but then Murdoch moved his operation to Wapping, and the cost of producing a newspaper just fell dramatically.
Yeah,
and that was our good fortune, really.
It was. So we were very lucky to meet that guy, and he helped us design the paper. The design was, quite advanced.
Oh, it was very, very good. Yeah.
Worked for 1990. And we got a couple of guys, freelancers, who worked in newspapers, who came and designed it, who wanted to learn how to use Quark Express. And it just went from there. So to get it out, that first issue, we to hear on the Monday morning that people in Hull, somebody rang one of the plots, rang up from Hull, said, just bought League Express at Hull Station at 6 a.m., 6:30 in the morning, on a Monday morning, with the reports of the games on the Sunday. It seems old-fashioned now because we've got the internet. We've got Twitter. You can read the report as it's happening. But it was revolutionary. We produced it in a kitchen and bathroom showroom.
Yeah.
Somebody had one of the directors one of the shareholders had a spare bit of office. It was before the days of email. It was before email. It was certainly before digital cameras. So, the photographers had to come in with their cameras into the studio. We had a little office where we blacked out the windows with curtains to act as a darkroom. They had to develop their pictures, and then we go through the process of producing the newspaper.
God, it sounds terrible, doesn't it? I mean, you wonder why we did it.
The printers were in a separate building about 400 yards away.
Yeah,
you have to get the huge pieces of film. The artwork together, and we'd have to run across to the Wakefield Express offices, and
hoping it wasn't raining.
If it was raining, you were knackered if it was raining. But anyway, after 6 weeks, the Wakefield Express who printed it threw us out.
Yeah,
threw us out. No, we don't want to do it anymore. But it was a bit of a pain because we were supposed to print at 10 o'clock. We'd always be sort of quarter to midnight by the time we got finished, really. So. And luckily, we managed to get in at the Telegraph and Argus in Brackley, where we stayed for about 6 or 7 months, didn't we?
Yeah.
They printed it. And then we developed a weekend product called Rugby League Weekend at first, and it's called anything, which looking back was a fantastic paper, really. But there was only 2 people doing 2 newspapers, it was full time. Too different.
Yeah, you don't know you're born, Jake, do you? When you listen to that, mate, you.
So when email, and when people, we had to have copy takers, 2 girls in every.
To get reports phoned in
on the phone, doing the reports, and then we'd have to sub it, and then they have to be designed and all the rest. There was no hard discs; it was all on floppy discs. We had to carry a floppy disc across the designers and that sort of thing. When we did launch, just by chance. There were 2 other Rugby League magazines launched in England, in Britain. Just unbelievable, really. The last time a Rugby League magazine launched was in 1947 or something like that. But there were 3 launched at the same time. And one was called 13, which was a glossy.
One was RL13, and the other was Rugby League Week, which was the Australian publication coming over to England. But neither of those 2 lasted more than a few weeks.
No. And looking back, 13 was a really good.
Oh, it was.
Paper. Full colour action, live stuff, Rugby League Week was obviously, just as good as it was in Australia. Dave had, especially Sean was the editor. But everybody thought, Rugby League Express was the first one to go. That's good. That's got no chance.
And we're still here.
And these guys don't know what they're doing, which we didn't, to be honest. But anyway,
maybe that's why you guys persisted, because you didn't know what you were doing. Maybe that's why you just stuck at it.
We did stick at it, but we weren't going to give up. I don't think Martyn's the sort of guy who gives up on anything. Absolutely not. But, we just kept going through thick and thin, and a lot of it was thin, wasn't it?
Oh gosh, yes, yeah. It was a challenge, wasn't it? There's no doubt about it. But we survived and prospered, at least to some degree. And as I say, we're still here, or at least I am in the office. So Tim's obviously got many better things to do and retired a few years ago. But I'm sort of I can't think what I'd be doing if I weren't doing this. So I'm still here.
You'd be driving your wife crazy at home, Martyn.
I would be, yeah.
That's
I would be. They always say the secret of a good marriage is not to spend too much time together. And
wise words, mate.
Yeah. So bear that in mind.
I was going to say, over the decades, fellas, what year did it start to become really easy for you guys? You mentioned when the emails came in. I guess being able to send a Word document over email probably made things a lot easier for you guys when it came to printing.
Yeah, I think so. It's difficult to put your finger on the point at which we felt we were established. I think that must have been when Super League started, Tim, probably, because, as you say, we got the confidence, or at least you did, to produce a yearbook and to start branching out into into other things. But it just gradually. The thing is, the pace of change when you're involved is actually quite slow. So it's very difficult to pick out a time and to say everything changed at that point. You can't easily do that. The part of it, of course, is that you become more knowledgeable yourself about what you're doing, and we did do over time, and that really helped us. And technology streamlines everything. And the other element that's probably worth pointing out is that when we first started, Tim, I recall that we bought three big computers that we could use to Apple Macs to for designing the pages, and they cost an absolute fortune. I can't remember. I'd be interesting to look back and see precisely how much that was, but there were thousands and thousands of pounds. And even today, we've just bought three new computers, very recently in the business, and they cost collectively far less today, not just in real terms, but in actual money terms, than the computers did originally in 1990. It's just amazing how the cost of technology has fallen so significantly. And what that means is that you can actually aim something now at a niche market, and you don't have to have a massive market in order to be able to survive and prosper reasonably well. So that's been quite important for us. I'd say, in fact, that the cost of technology coming down has been probably the most important thing that's allowed us to keep going. Tim, that's my view, and I think.
I think the cost of computers in 1990 was just about all the money we'd raised. I think that's it.
Yeah.
And there was something like 8 or 9, 10,000 each.
Yeah.
And compared to a computer these days, there were dinosaurs.
There were. Well, yeah, dinosaurs roamed the earth, didn't they, in those days?
Yeah. You're right. Technology has just made things a lot easier along the way. Email is one. Another one is digital photography, obviously.
Yeah.
People just coming down, just email you a picture and you've got it. You can put it on the page.
Yeah.
You just pick a picture, crop it, put it on the page. One thing I do remember in 1993 when we went to full colour. and it was our first full colour cover was when Britain played in the Sevens. Do you remember that in Sydney? It was a Sevens competition. Britain were in it, and I think we won it, if I remember right. But we had never had a satellite picture from Australia or anywhere else sent across. It wasn't email, it was satellite in those days. And it was a risk, but we'd arranged to get a colour picture action shot from the Sydney Sevens, which on the final was on Sunday.
From Colwheelan, I assume.
I think it was Colwheelan, New Centre, yeah. And it worked an absolute treat. It was absolutely fantastic. It was a beautiful picture. Phil Clark getting tackled with Kate in the sunshine. It was absolutely superb. It was great. Now, our competitor at the time was the Rugby League, which had moved to Monday from Friday to try and blow us out of the water. They were owned by a big national company. And they tried exactly the same thing. They trailed on the front page. Look on the back page. We've got a satellite picture, by the wonders of modern technology, sent over from Sydney, Australia. Britain winning the Sydney Sevens. And if you went to that page, it was just a black page. The picture was just gone. It was just black. And I think that was the beginning of the end for the Rugby League, And then
well, we bought them out eventually, didn't we, in 2002?
So we were just very lucky on that front, that we got this perfect picture on the front page. So it was wonderful. But printing technology has changed as well. Now, I think we used to have two guys who used to put the page together. So even what was made up on the computer, they used to cut out pictures and stick them on a page, and then you'd take them and have a negative second. The negative then would have to go down. They'd have to make a metal thing for the printer to do it and all that. It took ages. It was hard work. But now, printing, you just you design your page on the screen, press a button, send it to the printer, and it goes straight to plate. Bang.
Yes.
So it's made it possible to get out early, as early as we need to get out.
Yeah. And of course, the other difference now is the other difference now, Jake, is that the whole paper can now be put out digitally as opposed to a print version. And I think that's the one that you read on a Sunday night our time or Monday your time. So you can keep up with it from Australia as it's published. Normally published at about 8:30, 9 o'clock on Sunday night. And obviously from our point of view, it would actually be ideal if everyone read the digital version, because, of course, the great thing about a digital newspaper is that there are no printing costs and distribution costs. So, an actual printed newspaper does carry those costs with it. And, we occasionally do try to persuade some people to, move on to the digital version, but there are still a very significant number of people, particularly older people, who do love having a newspaper as opposed to reading something on a tablet. And I must admit, I do sympathise with that view myself. I'm more of a newspaper guy than a tablet guy, but because of my age, I suppose. But eventually, you would imagine that all printed newspapers would probably cease, and everything will be online at some point in the probably not very distant future.
I used to read the online version in France. I still read the digital version. I still subscribe to it. I think anybody not to have it, to be honest, because it's a lot cheaper, and it's there. I get it on a Sunday night sometimes. And 9 o'clock, 9:30, I'm reading what's happened that day.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's an amazing thing, and maybe we don't promote that as well as we should do, but we'll see. So, Jake, we've given you a bit of a review there of how we came to be where we are.
A history lesson.
Yeah. I suppose we ought to start talking about the game in 2025 now, didn't we? Because there's quite a lot to talk about.
Just before we move on to
Absolutely,
that,
mate.
that I must mention that my first job in rugby league was with Sheffield Council as a rugby league development officer, which was basically Sheffield Eagles. Sheffield Council paid my salary. And Martyn was instrumental in me getting that job in 1987. Yeah, in 1987, I think I said that job. Because Martyn was on the interview panel. He was working in Sheffield at the time at the university, or Hallam University. And obviously, his rugby league background put him in a position to be on the development interview panel. I must admit, so I went down for this and more with hope than expectations. I went down to interview at Sheffield Eagles office in Overton and went into the room to the interview. There were about 15 people. 15 people on the interview panel, including Martyn. Do you recall it, Martyn? I don't know if you do or not. And there's some pretty high-profile people, competing for the job. And one of them was Steve Evans, great international, who wanted to play for Sheffield Eagles, but didn't want to pay him, the full salary. He wanted Sheffield Council to pay his playing salary, basically. Steve did, went on to be the Catalan, one of the top coach.
Yeah.
A lot of high-profile people. But anyway, went in, did the interview panel, got a question from all these 13 people, including mine. And I know afterwards that people didn't want me because I'd been, to be honest, I was a bit of a feckless young man before I'd settled down with the family. And we'd just been abroad travelling for a year with my wife on a motorbike, and we'd come back and we'd settle down. And I know that a lot of the administrators thought that I wasn't, settled down, and I wasn't going to stick at the job. I wouldn't. So, but I know that Martyn persuaded me that I should do the job because I showed initiative by getting a motorbike and trying to get to Australia on a motorbike, which I didn't get there, but I got to India. So he was instrumental in me getting that job, which I did for 6 years, which was great. And my successor at the Sheffield Rugby League Development, who would have been, Martyn? Can you remember who it was? Who became
Ralph Rimmer, of course.
Ralph Rimmer, who became chief exec of the Football League.
Yeah,
I
who's
wanted to great things with Rugby League Express. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ralph, ironically, now has come back into rugby league with Huddersfield Giants. So I'm hoping we're going to have Ralph on here at some time quite soon. So we'll have some interesting reminiscences there. I wasn't on the interview panel, by the way, that gave Ralph the job, although I'm sure I would have given it to him. But it's funny actually because I'd been involved with Sheffield Eagles from when they started in 1984. When Gary first had the idea of setting up a club, I'd made contact with him and said, I work in Sheffield at the Polytechnic, as I think it then was. Can I be, of any assistance to you in achieving your objective? And obviously he was keen to have everybody or anybody really in Sheffield who might be interested in helping him develop rugby league. And we set up the Sheffield I suppose it was a Sheffield Foundation, didn't we? Or Development Association, I think it was called at the time.
Sheffield and District Rugby League Development Association.
Yes. I remember the great John Cornwell. Do you remember John?
Oh, John, what a great guy!
Who probably I think John died about a year ago, but he was a wonderful guy. I think he was the leader of South Yorkshire County Council for a while. And was an incredible rugby league supporter and one of the best guys, that you could hope to meet. And was a League Express subscriber, from the day we launched it up to the date of his very sad death. As I say, I think it was about a year or so ago, if I remember rightly, or maybe a bit longer. But yeah, one or two real key people involved in the early days at Sheffield Eagles and rugby league in Sheffield.
Yeah, Ralph's back at Huddersfield, trying to help out with this stadium, let's call it stadium business. They're moving stadium because I think it's too big, or Ken Daly think it's too big for the Huddersfield Giants. That's one hell of a job that Ralph's got there because they don't actually have a site for another stadium.
No. Do you think it's just a total pipe dream, Tim?
Well, it's certainly a dream at the moment, isn't it? Because there's nothing being put in place at the minute. Ken Davies actually bought that. There's a plan, Jake, to move Huddersfield Giants to Halifax, which is about 6 or 7 miles, not very far, but it's another world as far as some Huddersfield fans are concerned. To play there temporarily while they build a new stadium in Huddersfield, like near to where they play now. But they haven't got a site. They haven't bought anywhere to run the stadium. I went to the Super League Grand Final this year with my son on the train. And coming back, we're sitting opposite two Giants fans. And they were, I mean, you could describe them as being cheerfully miserable. They were happy people, but miserable about Huddersfield Giants. And they were real, true blue, Huddersfield fans. They had the claret and gold, everything on.
Absolutely.
Socks, all the rest of it. They were real fans. And the guy said, look, if they move to Halifax, that's it, finished.
Yeah, of course.
So, they're in real trouble. And this year, Ken Davies has said the stadium they play at is too big. There's not it's rubbish. So lo and behold, there's going to go what? There's a lot of people aren't going already because they think it's rubbish.
Yeah.
What's in the stadium?
And the ironic thing is, of all the stadiums in rugby league, it's one of my favourites to watch the game. I think it's a great place to watch the game. And my only comment to Ken would be, I don't know how many millions of pounds it's going to cost him to build a new stadium, but if they'd spend all that money on marketing what they've got at the moment, they'd fill the bloody stadium in no time. I'm quite certain if they'd only focus on making themselves more popular. I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned claret and gold. I think rugby league clubs have got such a load of iconic colours. When you talk about if I said to you cherry and white, you'd know who I was talking about. If I said to you blood and gold, you'd know that was the Catalans. Huddersfield Giants, the claret and gold should be some of the most iconic colours in rugby league, and I can't understand for the life of me why they don't focus on promoting, claret and gold throughout the town of Huddersfield and its immediate environs, and really just promote themselves, properly, with a proper marketing and promotional strategy. Instead, they go on and on about, the stadium's too big for them. Well, I mean, can you imagine anybody else saying that anywhere? Can you imagine? It just seems absolutely ridiculous to me. But it reflects a certain mindset in rugby league that we're a small game, and we're going to continue being a small game. And there aren't that many people who want to watch us, and I think that's such a defeatist mindset. If I'm really honest about it, Tim and Jake, that I've got great admiration for Ken Davey and his financial support of Huddersfield Giants. He's been an absolute brick for many years, and I had great admiration for his wife Jennifer, who sadly died a few years ago, because she got Ken into being a Huddersfield supporter in the first place. But I do think he's barking up the wrong tree with this moving out of the stadium. My aim, if I were them, I mean, my ultimate objective would be to outdraw Huddersfield Town Football Club. And I know that might seem a ridiculously ambitious aim as things stand at the moment, but that's what I would be looking to do. And if that meant spending a lot of money on finding much more creative ways to market the club, then that's what I would do. It's far better to spend the money on doing that than building a new stadium that clearly isn't needed, and that clearly the local authority don't want to give them permission to do in any case. So how ridiculous can it be?
Well, I think that's the message for all rugby league clubs, is to fill your stadiums. That's the be all and end all.
Be more creative. Yeah, be more creative.
But they're not going to do that if they're not going to spend money on marketing or improving the ground or match day experience, which is Wakefields, example. I know they're lucky they've got a guy, I suppose, who's got a bit of money in his wallet, and they
Yes.
spend on it. But that's the key to all the rugby, to rugby league sponsors. We can start filling the stadiums, then we can make the game bigger. But when you watch a game on TV and there's nobody there, after all these years, even I think, oh, blimey,
Yes.
we can do better than this. So
Yeah.
you've got to spend to accumulate. You just got to.
And all credit, as you say, to the clubs who have done that. Clubs like Lee and clubs like Wakefield, have done a marvellous job.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some clubs are doing it. I'm not, can't have got all clubs, but that's the key to making the game big. Is to get those stadiums full and make a great atmosphere, and get the town proud, wanting to be at that game every 2 weeks, wanting to be in that stadium as well.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, a lot of rugby league clubs, Jake, and it's probably true in Australia too. A lot of rugby league clubs think that the way to fill a stadium or come near to filling a stadium is to have a winning team. And to some degree, of course, that's absolutely right. But the real key to marketing is to... I always remember watching a program about American sport that said, the really good marketeers will fill a stadium even for a team that's losing badly. And you find that in a lot of American sport. They still sell out. I think the Fighting Irish, the University of Notre Dame, has sold out every game, is it, since 1972 or something, and they've not always had a winning team. They always, once you start selling out, you start accumulating more people who actually want to come to the games but can't because you've sold all your tickets. So, the best marketing slogan in the world is sold out, because then it just makes, if an event is sold out. I mean, I know from my own experience, if you want to go to a concert or the theatre or something, you check for tickets and you're told that the event's already sold out. You think, oh, crikey, next time I'll buy tickets a lot earlier, because I don't want to be on the receiving end of that message again. So I think that's quite important, really, and it's just disappointing to see clubs that don't really know how to promote themselves in their own communities.
It's about selling that match day experience, isn't it? And that's what the Americans do so well with their tailgating. And yeah, if you go into a game of football over there, you're really going to a festival. It also helps that they're all, mad fans that wouldn't miss a game if their life depended on it. Which we have a lot of those fans in England as well. I'm not saying we don't, but I think clubs could do a better job of creating that festival-like match day experience where you're not just rocking up 15 minutes before kickoff, you're getting there a few hours earlier, mingling with the other fans, and, I think that goes a long way to, packing out your crowd.
Yeah, that's what Hull KR have tried to do with Craven Street, isn't it, at their stadium? And it's been very successful. Fans turning up early, particularly on a beautiful summer's day, which we've had quite a lot of this year, haven't we? And fans like to socialise. They're there for the game. Clearly, the game is the central focus of the day, but they love to just chat to each other and just pass the time of day and so on. And we need to learn how to do more of that. And of course, if you get them there early, people are spending more money with you. So it clearly makes enormous sense in every way. And I just hope that we can get more clubs going down that route.
I think also. Sorry, Tim. No, you carry on, mate.
Yeah, you said there's a game-wide, problem as well in terms of marketing and pushing the game. That's a very interesting article this week in the League Express. Straight talking, the guy. I apologise if I can't remember the guy's name. The guy who lived in Hull now, talking about how to get kids into the game in London. It was from we getting the message across about the game. His message might not have. Been something I'd have gone for really, some of them. But he's right. There's no exposure for rugby league. I'm not a social media freak. I'm just on Facebook really. But there's very little very little about it, very little promoting the players. We need some creativity within the governing body on how to get our mission across, how to get the game in front of them. Because it's easy when you're a rugby league fan to think it's fantastic and things going well. You see a good game, Leeds and St Helens, full crowd, bang bang bang, it's great, fantastic game. But who's watching it? That's the thing. Who is watching it? We think it's great, but if you go to London and you go into the schools of London, you ask kids what rugby league's all about, they're answer on
blank stares, isn't it?
So that it's a simple thing, really, but it's not easy to solve. It's a simple problem that's not very easy to solve, but it can be solved. Sports do it. Some other sports do it. Drink brands do it. They all do it. There's people who know how to get their brand in front of people, other people.
Absolutely.
So we've got to get those people with creative ideas and get the game out. Get the game in front of them.
Well, one club that's going to have to do a bit of work on their branding, the Salford Red Devils. What's the latest on them at the moment, Martyn? I saw they've put out a statement a few days ago, was it? I read the statement myself.
Yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, I read it myself. It looked like they were pointing the finger at other reasons as to why they're failing to operate as a club and not pointing the finger at themselves.
I mean, I'd love to know who put that statement out on their behalf, really, who originated it. I mean, it just seems full of bluster to me. These people took over the club several months ago now, or supposedly took over the club several months ago, with promises to put funding into it and turn its fortunes around. But we've seen none of that money. They're still, even in the statement they put out yesterday, they're still talking about a bridging loan that's going to come and rescue the situation at some point in the near future. I mean, how many times I'm getting sick to death of hearing that expression, bridging loan, which never seems to turn up. It just seems absolutely ridiculous, and the club is just sinking lower and lower. Last weekend, they put out a team made up mainly of loan players from other clubs, and Hull FC put 80 points past them. They play Wakefield this week. In fact, it's interesting, really, because Wakefield have got to play them twice in the last 6 matches. I mean, the fixture list has been so lopsided this year. I mean, the fact for Wakefield, the fact that they've got to play them twice is the best, is Wakefield's best hope for ensuring they finish in the top 6, really. So of all the other clubs in the game, Wakefield is the one that can't afford Salford to go bust. So if I were Wakefield, I'd be lending half my team to Salford to make sure they do play for the last 6 weeks of the season. I mean, it's a ridiculous situation. And the problem is that the RFL, because Salford as a club is a completely independent entity, the RFL is very limited in being able to do anything about it, really. They've just got to keep their fingers crossed that Salford can keep up this, keep on borrowing players until the season is completed, and then God knows what's going to happen. I assume it might go into administration, and whether there would then be anybody being able to step forward to bring them out of administration, I'm not quite so sure. But the crazy thing is as well, that because a lot of this financial misery has occurred since November the 30th last year, there is a chance that Salford could still be one of the top 12 teams to be in Super League next year. It's certainly not beyond the realms of possibility. As somebody was saying, Salford's social media score will rise, actually, because of all the social media, attention that they've gained with all these problems. Fortunately, they had a fairly high score anyway, so it won't rise by that much. But it's certainly not beyond the realms of possibility that they could still be in Super League next year. I mean, wouldn't that be crazy, Tim?
That would be absolutely brilliant. But if they do survive and if they are in Super League, I've done my bit because I went to watch Salford and Leeds. I think it was in April. I was staying in Manchester with my son, and I paid £10 to park my car on a bit of muddy ground, some distance from the stadium. So I put my £10 in, but I've been part of that financial rescue of Salford as I watched it. The thing is that when Salford finished fourth last year, I believe, did they? Or were they third? I can't remember. They were third or fourth.
Fourth.
League table. Fourth. And in the pre-season friendly, when they could fit them, the financial troubles were obviously already well known. They were able to field a full team in the friendly because it wasn't the official game.
Yes.
And they beat St Helens 40 points to 12.
They did at St Helens, yeah.
Match, it's just unbelievable. But I mean, every week when I look at, when I'm putting together a Rugby League Yearbook, it's always Salford. It's always Salford in more trouble than they were last week. It's got to end somewhere. It's a damn shame because there's got to be a club out there.
Oh,
great stadium. Again, actually full every.
Great location. Yeah. It's
very passionate. Very expensive car parking.
So. Yeah. But it is a tragedy for rugby league, I'm afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move on to some other news. There's a club out there that'll be quite happy. A lot of their fans will be cheering. Brad Arthur. He's come out and announced he'll be with Leeds until the end of 2026 at the very least. What's your reaction to this news, fellas?
I bet he's got a great contract because, with that threat to go back to Australia that was hanging over them, it's fairly obvious Leeds were really anxious to keep him, and I bet they've given him a significant rise in his salary. He's a smart negotiator, I think. I suspect that Brad was always likely to stay because he didn't obviously have a job to go back to in Australia after having been linked to the Perth Bears, but not got that job that a lot of people thought he would get. He's done a great job at Leeds. There's no doubt about that in my mind. I think Leeds are really challenging. They are potential challengers for the title this year, and I should think everybody's extremely relieved, the players included, that Brad will still be there next year, and I'm quite sure that the Leeds fans will feel the same way. Tim, what's your take on that?
I think so too. I think Leeds are a pretty good team. They're very well drilled, very well disciplined. They've also got some talented players, a lot of pace, some big guys in the middle. But what Jake Kearnan's done this season, to me, demonstrates that Brad Arthur, is a good man manager. Somebody, Jake Kearnan, absolutely fabulous player, bit of a loose cannon.
Yeah.
Not a team player. You wouldn't say he was a team player before, as an individual player. And this year he's really knuckled down. He's doing some great things for Leeds.
Do you think he ought to be in the England squad?
I'm not sure. I mean,
no, I'm not sure either.
Sean probably knows him better than we do, I think. So he could be unsettling, couldn't he? He could be unsettling. So, but he's a fantastic player.
Yeah.
He played in that international in Denver against New Zealand.
Yeah.
And he played pretty well in the centres.
Oh, he did, yes. He did, yeah.
So he has got some experience. Who was the coach then? Was Sean Wayne the coach then?
I think he was, yeah. I think he was.
Maybe he didn't like what, how Jake conducted himself when he was in the England camp and was.
Yeah, I'd have to check on that, though. I can't immediately. I'm not absolutely sure. But yeah, no. So it's good news for Leeds.
Yeah, it's great for Leeds, and Leeds they're beating Ulster away, beating Lee away. So they're definitely there, and they can contend the title this year.
Yeah.
I actually work with the Titans fan who was a little bit disappointed that Brad Arthur re-signed. I think he was hoping to get BA down on the Gold Coast to help revive the Titans if Des Hasler gets the flick. But yeah, unfortunately, that won't be happening for him. The other thing we've got to talk about, fellas, is we've got a blockbuster this weekend. Hull KR taking on Wigan. Who do you like in this one? And what's the latest on Bevan French? Is
Well,
he?
Bevan French was in the squad last week, but didn't make the 18 for the game day itself. So he's obviously not fully recovered yet, but I suspect that he will be fit to play on Friday. But we've not seen the 21-man squad yet, and we don't know what the game day squad will be. But I'd be amazed if he didn't come back for this game, and I think if he does, I think he could be the crucial factor. Although, of course, they'll be missing Junior Nsemba, who was suffered a head injury assessment at Warrington, or failed a head injury assessment at Warrington. So that's a blow for Wigan. But I still think Wigan are the team that rises to every occasion. And I think they might rise to the occasion this week and close the gap to 2 points. Although, interestingly enough, Hull KR have got a much better points difference than Wigan at the moment. So even if Wigan could move level with them, Hull KR would probably still, edge the league leaders' shield on that basis. So Hull KR have probably got to lose at Wigan and then lose one other game and perhaps even two other games for Wigan to win the league leaders' shield. So it's looking reasonably nailed on for Hull KR, regardless of what the result is in this game. So I think I think it could just go Wigan's way. What do you think, Tim?
They're coming to the business end of the season. They've had their blip, every
They
season.
always do, yeah.
Some point in the middle of the season, we'll have a blip. But the really top teams like Wigan, they don't have blips at the end of the season. They get it out of the way. So I don't know why it happens, but it does. And they've had the blip in June and July. They lost at Wakefield when they played really Wakefield fairly weak back out, but Wakefield beat them. They just about scraped home at Huddersfield. They lost. Was it Hull? They lost at home.
They did lose. They did lose at home to Hull.
Yeah. So they've had the blip, and now it's the running. It's a serious business end of the season. Okay. Obviously, they peaked towards the end of the season last year as well, so we expect them to peak as well. So it should be a pretty fantastic game. I think Wigan. You're right about Bevan French. He's just is that real sort of X factor player who can turn a game with one of his side steps and dummies and shimmies. He can turn it. He won the grand final for them last year. He won the Challenge Cup final for them last year. He's just that player. So. But let's hope he's fit. I'm sure they won't want to bring him back unless he's fit and ready to go. They're better off leaving him to them. So if he doesn't play, I think I've got a chance.
And what we were saying a bit earlier about sellout crowds. I mean, I know Wigan's stadium holds 25,000, but this game between 1 and 2, if any game ought to be a sellout, it should be this one. It'll be interesting to see what sort of crowd they do attract. I would hope it would be at least 20,000, and if not more than that, because Hull KR will take a very big following, I'm fairly sure, even though it's a Friday night game and they've got to cross the Pennines on the M62. But so it will be interesting to see what sort of crowd figure it does draw, and it would be pretty disappointing, wouldn't it, if it was less than 20.
Yeah.
Friday night, travelling across, it doesn't look very far on that, but on the M62, anything could happen on Friday night, can't it? So
Yeah.
Puts a lot of people off to it.
It does, there's no doubt about it.
Ideally, it wouldn't have been on a Friday night, Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. These are little things that just seem like little minor details. And I know, it wasn't inevitable that OKR and Wigan won the top two at this time of year, the fixture list. But it's a sort of thing, little detail that makes a very, very important one. Makes big.
Couldn't agree more.
It's a big effect for it. So it's just that it's typical of the rugby league really that we do that. But I think there'll be a decent healthy crowd. But the OKR, you could say the OKR fans, let's put it calmly, passionate.
They are, yes, they are. They're fantastic, aren't they?
Well, that's it. Imagine if it was a Saturday afternoon game, nice, perfect, dry weather on a fast track. There'd be nothing better than going and watching that match and then going having a night out afterwards, a few beers with your mates afterwards. Yeah, like you said, I'm sure if we had someone doing the schedule that had a little bit of know-how about scheduling and what fans want to see,
Yeah,
we might have gotten that result. However,
yeah, yeah.
we've got what we've got, and we'll just have to accept it on Friday night and sit down and enjoy it. All right, fellas. Well, we've ticked over an hour or so now. Before we wrap things up today, is there anything else you want to discuss before we get out of here?
Just wonder what Tim thinks about. Sorry, St Helens. Oh gosh, yeah. Were you at Bellevue last Friday?
I wasn't, and I had something else on, and I haven't been able to see the replay. But
No,
I believe that they were pretty good, and they were far too good for Wakefield.
absolutely, yes.
So St Helens are coming good now.
Yeah.
As well. So we've got Leeds, St Helens, Wigan, OKR, Lee. Don't count them out, even though Leeds, just managed to beat them last week. So we've got a lot of competitors. Hull FC, could obviously hot and cold, but when they're hot, they can beat anybody.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a pretty good competition at the moment.
Yeah. Final point, Tim. What do you think about the what's happened recently with Nigel Wood coming back to be the chairman of the RFL?
Well, I think it's got to be better than what was happening.
Yeah.
Not a lot was happening, was it?
No.
Ticking along, and there's no real progress. The thing about Nigel, I've said it a few times, is that whatever you say about him, he's a passionate rugby league fan. He loves rugby league.
Yeah.
People have to go to him because he was he's obviously doing what he's done at Bradford. He was chairman at Bradford or whatever. But everybody's got into rugby league because when they were a kid they supported a team. And everybody, there's nobody involved in rugby league who didn't really have a very few people who didn't have a boyhood team, and you support that team still. We're always going to support it. So I wouldn't criticise him for that. His big job is obviously come up, with he's got 14 teams. His big job is getting the next TV contracts.
Yes.
That's really the key job for him now, and I'm sure he knows that, and I'm sure he's working on it. It's vital for the future of the game, strengthen the game, get better coverage, wider coverage, and get more money into it.
Do you think IMG still have a role in the game, Tim?
I'm not quite sure, to be honest. I mean, I did one of the funny things was I sort of for the December chapter from the Rugby League Yearbook the other night, and it was the result of the grading to Newcombe top by 0.72%, 0.7 so has gone up by 0.73%. But
yes,
it's not sport, is it?
No. Oh no.
What they've done beside that, I have no idea.
No.
I thought they were going to be the ones who projected the game to the country. I thought that was going to be their job.
Yeah.
And that's obviously worth paying them whatever they get, 750,000 back. It's worth paying them that if they succeed in it. But I don't see any evidence of that. I'm not seeing any evidence whatsoever.
No, I don't think anyone does.
So it might be worth it. I mean, I don't watch every podcast. Have we had anybody on from IMG yet?
No. Who knows?
We put the invite out.
A great guest. I mean, it make the podcast absolutely huge. Make the podcast huge because
it would. I'm not sure they would come on. That's the trouble. But they may be doing some brilliant things that none of us are aware of.
Exactly.
That one day they'll reveal.
Well, I think even Nigel, I think he mentioned that there were some things that they're doing behind the scenes that we obviously don't get to see, but it'd be nice if they came out and revealed those things to us, so maybe we could. Yeah, Tim, if you had to guess who the two teams coming up next year would be, who would they be, mate? And I guess ideally, sorry, mate.
Three?
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, if Salford go down.
Well, from a rugby league point of view, I'd like London and Toulouse to come up. this is without thinking about how the hell they're going to, get teams together to compete. And after that, I don't know. York, maybe. I think York could be in terms of a name and a city and a destination. I think that would be a good place to have a Super League team. The big go-to sort of place, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to go to York and spend a day in York and watch a Rugby League game, go out for a night in York. Bradford, I quite like Bradford, but they haven't really got the stadium. No, they did have. They certainly did have in the late 90s. So Toulouse, London, and York, if Salford have to go down. I imagine.
Yeah. No, for sure. Well, we'll have to wait and see when this panel makes their decision. All right, fellas. Well, been very generous with your time today, Tim. Thanks for coming on, mate. It was a pleasure for me to sit here and listen to you both almost reminisce and talk about how you got it started. There's a few things there I didn't know, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners didn't know. So it's like a little trip down memory lane for you both, I think.
Yes. Yeah, good and bad memories.
Right, and for our listeners, is there any way that they can preview the yearbook, Martyn, pre-order the yearbook, or will that come out a little bit later? Where
That
people
will be
can put their
coming out
orders in?
soon, but just put down a marker. You can buy the yearbook by going to the totalrl.com website /shop. We've not actually got the next year's yearbook up there yet for sale as yet, but it will be in the fairly near future, I think. So, but it's just a good thing just to remind everybody that it's the book that you really need if you're a rugby league fan. If you want to know about everything that's happened in the game during 2025, you can only do that by buying this yearbook where everything is in one source. And it's an incredible effort by Tim and Dan. And we love the yearbook, and everybody who buys it says much the same thing. Not sure if Salford fans will be that keen on it this year, but apart from them, everybody else will absolutely love it, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a tremendous resource. I guess for us, when it comes to if you're writing, you need to check, a result from last year, what happened in this game. You can flick back and see exactly what happened. So, really looking forward to reading that one this year, Tim. And apologies to our Salford fans. Maybe they'll buy a copy just so they can look back at the dark times when they're having success in the future, perhaps.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What joke is that? I wish somebody sat the Rugby League Yearbook in 1995.
Yes.
When all those books are referred to. Wouldn't that be great to see?
It would. It would, yes, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. All right, fellas. We might wrap it up here. Thanks again, Tim. Really appreciate your time, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Jake.
No worries. And Martyn, we'll do it again next week, mate.
That's great. Okay, mate. Thanks a lot. Cheers then.